Hey, aviators, welcome to the Pro Pilot Playbook Podcast. I'm Mike,
And I'm
and my,
Sean.
and we're here to try to get to you weekly and give you all the tips and hacks you need to start your career in aviation and help you enjoy a challenging and rewarding career like we have.
That's
So we're
right.
coming at you. Yeah, we're coming
Yeah,
at you
there's
today.
there's plenty of books and tapes and internet programs on how to fly an airplane, physically manipulating the controls. But to our knowledge, we're the only folks that have put together. Well, we have the podcast and the program we sell, but the actual step by step, you know, uh, if we could do it all over again, the fastest and cheapest way possible.
Yep.
That's what we're about here. It's a
Yeah.
guidebook to your career.
This is a whole guidebook to get you into flying. It's not about the actual flying once it starts. So yeah, and I'll tell you what, Sean, every day the response is overwhelming. I mean, we're going to read a question today. Every day we're getting questions and feedback, and we really enjoy it, and it helps us build our momentum for what we're doing. So yeah, if you guys have comments or questions, please let us know, and we're going to try to get to as many of them as possible.
Yep. Yeah. The podcast now is available on every outlet a podcast is available on. I mean, besides iTunes or Google or I don't even know them all. I think that it's actually like on a dozen different things. You can even tell the Amazon Echo devices. You can ask Alexa to play the. And it just lit up again in my office. You can ask her to play the Pro Pilot Playbook podcast, and she'll start playing it. So I don't know. I think that's neat. My kids think it's
That
neat.
is really cool. Yeah,
But
man, we're
this is
big time.
another and we're on YouTube. And so if you're on YouTube, you can actually see our faces right now. But so this one is another listener question episode.
Yep.
Been pretty popular. If you have a question for us, you can email us podcast@propilotplaybook.com and we'll get your question on the air. But this topic probably saw from the title of the podcast. We've been beating this one, crazy here. But
Yeah.
and there was a lot of speculation, after coming out of we're on the backside of the COVID thing. Fingers crossed, at least I think we're on the backside of it. Um, the pilot shortage, this thing has been
Yes.
coming, and COVID definitely slowed it down big time. I mean, you had airlines that were supposed to be hiring 1,200 people this year, ended up laying off 4,000 or early retirements or, furloughed, whatever, laid off close to, double that number to 3,000
Yeah.
people instead of hiring the 1,200. But we're seeing it start to change course, and
Yep.
the train has definitely left the station. Can't say all the slack's out of the cars yet, but it's
No.
definitely chugging along. You got some major operators saying that they're hiring people. Almost all the
Mhm.
regional operators they've called everybody back. If they're not
Right.
back on the line yet, those guys and girls they have slots to get back in the sim to get requalled. Anybody that got hired right before COVID is got training slots. So and I'm hearing regional companies saying they're accepting resumes. I'm hearing major airlines say how many they're hiring this year. So
Right.
it's spinning back up again. Um, Now, I've said this before on another podcast. My personal opinion is that not only are we going to be back in this pilot shortage within, I think originally I had said like 24 months or something. We're probably down to the year and a half area right now since I said that. But I think it's going to be worse than it ever was before. And
Yeah, I agree.
we were already in a bad spot. You were seeing some studies say, there was going to be more guys retiring in the next 10 years than there were people even in the training pipeline to become pilots. And not all those people were going to become professional pilots. And not only that stuff happening, but you also saw the industry is expanding. Air travel is becoming more and more a thing just 10 years ago, people had never thought about getting on an airplane. Now it's
Right.
it's something you do with these discount air carriers we got going.
Oh man, you can fly 1,000 miles away for $65. It's like, holy cow.
Oh yeah, you catch them the right moment. I mean, you can go, Cincinnati to Florida. I've bought a ticket for $39 before.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Actually,
And half of that's taxes.
yeah. Yeah, I know. Actually, I bought a Frontier flight last minute, Sarasota to Cincinnati. My Delta flight had a maintenance issue, and there was a Frontier flight leaving right behind me in the airport. It was leaving in 45 minutes or something. I hurry up, got on their website because it was last minute. Most of the people had already checked in for the flight. I bought that ticket for $17.
Now that's awesome.
It wasn't even, it was like $16.79 or so. I couldn't even believe it was. I mean, why even charge for the ticket?
Yeah, God, it's crazy.
But anyway, so you have that stuff going on. So the industry's just expanding. This pilot shortage was a real deal. And the reason why I say we're going to be back in it and worse than ever is because, during this COVID thing, you had flight schools going out of business, mom and pop flight schools. You had people uncertain about, spending that much money on stuff that, we're holding out. So there is somewhat of a bubble. The flight training, the folks that were going to be flight training, that bubble is going to be traveling through the industry too. So it's going to be right back into it.
Right. And if you think about it, so these airlines prior to COVID, so back in the beginning of 2020, were hiring and had plans to hire to meet up with the demand hundreds of pilots a month. All these airlines, they all were doing it. Everybody was hiring. Then all of a sudden COVID hit and all of that stopped. And then everybody got laid off. Well, now everybody's coming back. Demand is not going to be gradual. It's going to come back as soon as the vaccine's out pretty quickly. Well, now they're going to recall their pilots, but you forgot about the 12, 13, 14, 15 months where they didn't hire, and they had to hire in order to meet up with the demand. So now all of a sudden you've compounded the issue. So it could be a really sweet spot, and it may take a long time for this to I think it's years and years where aviation is going to be good to get in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. What's weird about this topic, Mike, I don't know if you've experienced this before, but I've gotten this pilot shortage conversation with, some of our colleagues, maybe guys I know, or maybe just some airline guy I was sitting next to on the plane and we started chatting, but some of these guys hadn't seen it. And maybe it's just because we had created this program and, we had our noses in this thing a little bit more than the average guy in our industry, but I don't think folks realize just how bad it was. I mean, you had the FAA looking at, before all this COVID stuff hit, they were doing studies on what it would take to have single pilot airlines flying around, instead of having a crew of two, have one guy. And now what they decided was, what came of all that is the freighters are going to be the first planes to be doing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And they're going to be moving to some type of drone or an autonomous flown airplane for some of the feeder routes. Like they're going to, some of that stuff, the caravans were doing, and these smaller aircraft, with one airplane flies into the city of 50,000 people. And there's all the little caravans there that fly out in the middle of the country, these little 3,000 and 5,000 person towns. That stuff's going to be remote operated. But yeah, they're going to do this single pilot stuff with the freight stuff first, and see how it goes. But I mean, it's a real thing, and it's going to be coming down the pipe even larger than before. And some of you that have listened to the podcast regularly have heard us ramble on about this and probably said a lot of the same things. But
yeah, oh yeah,
the reason for why we're rehashing this is because now that everything is spinning up again, and Mike and I are seeing it in our side of the industry. I'm getting phone calls from guys saying, I got called back. I got this slot for training. Oh, hey, by the way, we're taking resumes again. Oh, hey, by the way, we're hiring 800 this year. So it's going to pop back up, and it's going to pop back up quick. And Garrett has sent us a question.
Oh yeah. Let's hear this one.
And this is, we've answered a question like this before, but Garrett has kind of a unique thing going on, and I thought it was a good question to hit on this subject of the pilot shortage, mix that pilot shortage background into it before I read the question. So here it is. Garrett writes, "Hey guys, I've been looking into a career change when I stumbled on the idea of becoming a pilot. I found your podcast, and it's inspired me to seriously consider taking the next step. I'm 24 years old and currently a teacher in the Kansas City area. There's an ATP flight school, which is, that's one of the schools we mentioned. We've mentioned several times. They're one of these, as a sidebar,
Accelerated.
Yeah, accelerated training schools, and you show up and they take you all the way through very quickly. It's a little pricey, but you're paying, you're getting something for your money. You're getting it done super fast, and then you turn around, you become an instructor for them, you work for them. It's a great thing. They do have competitors. They're not the only ones doing that. But anyway, back to the email. There's an ATP flight school relatively close to my apartment, so I potentially wouldn't have to relocate to begin an accelerated program. As of now, my wife is attending graduate school and won't be working for another 2 years, meaning I'm our only source of income at the moment. You mentioned multiple times in the podcast that there's a shortage in pilots at the moment. Though I'm concerned if I wait 2 years before I start flight school, the shortage will be over and I'll be one of the many pilots trying to get a foot in the door. Any advice for how I could start getting exposure to the industry and make some connections in the meantime? Thank you for your time and for all you guys do with the podcast. It really does make the process of becoming a pilot seem achievable." Garrett.
Well, that's good. I mean, what a question. What a great guy. I mean, that's why we made this podcast and our program for people like that, because that guy, he sounds like he really wants to do it. It's a dream, and he's just trying to find out how.
Right.
So we already addressed at the beginning the demand issue. So Garrett, I don't think that's going to be a problem, whether you start now or later. That I don't think that's going to be a factor. And I think Sean and I both agree on that. Yeah.
So, well, real quick, just the timeline for everybody out there, it's going to take about 2 years to get all of your certificates and ratings and your hours to the point where you would be applying for that first airline job. 2 years is the typical. It can be done a little quicker or may take some folks a little longer, but 2 years is a good average. But even if you wait 2 years and then you start, you're still going to be, it's probably just going to be better. It'll be even easier. It's going to be another, like I said, 18 months or so, possibly 2 years before we're all the way spun up back to full capacity and everybody's, the shortage is in full demand again, or spun up all the way again. So you're going to be fine. I would not worry about that. One thing, Mike and I were talking about this before we hit record here. ATP, and I'm not sure their competitor American Flyers, if they operate like this too, but ATP wants you to have, before they get into that accelerated training program, which we've talked about before, which is the way we recommend you do this. It's not go to the airport once a week. That's a surefire way to make it go as long as possible and cost as much
a ton of money
as possible. Yeah. We recommend you're at the airport every day, all day long, knocking this thing out. ATP won't take you into their program until you have your private anyway. Actually, that may be just for their financing options.
Right.
I don't know about the program in general. I'm sure
he can check into that though.
Yeah. I don't want to put words on ATP's mouth, but it would probably be a good idea anyway. I mean, in your situation, I would recommend that you get that private pilot certificate. Go to, it doesn't have to be the ATP school. That's just going to mean it's going to cost you more money. In your situation, you could start flying. I wouldn't do any less than 3 days a week, and knock that private pilot certificate out. And then while you're waiting on your wife to finish up school, you could be, renting an airplane, building hours. You're going to need that 1,500 hours anyway. Putting hours in the logbook. You can be absorbing, the stuff for your instrument rating. You could even find an instructor. You could start studying for the written, for the instructor.
Absolutely. And that doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you're going to
Yeah.
need an instructor sign off to take the test, but that's not a big deal either. Just go back to that same mom and pop school you got your private at, and find an instructor that's, tell them your story. It's willing to sign you off for the test. Um,
Yeah.
so there's stuff you could be doing for sure, but I mean, you're going to be able to get your stuff together, get that private. You're still putting time in the logbook. Help your wife get that job with her shiny new graduate degree.
Oh
And
man.
you'll have your plan together. You'll have that, chunk of change you're going to need to go through the ATP school. And yeah.
Yeah, and just some words of encouragement. I'd say you're in a tremendous spot because, first of all, you're in the great town of Kansas City, great Midwestern town. You're lucky enough to have an APP right next to you. It sounds like it's real near your apartment where you go. Fantastic. There's flying jobs in Kansas City. As a matter of fact, it's, my mind was just astray. If you saw me zone out for a minute, it's 5:20 here, so it's getting a little close to dinner time. So I started thinking about Jack Stack's Barbecue in downtown Kansas City, the greatest barbecue restaurant probably in the world,
Yeah.
where they serve the barbecue hot. So but I'm back focused now after I thought about that. But there's a couple airports there with a lot of different operators, and any step you take, I understand I totally get the single income thing, and she's in school and all of that. But any step you take, any action is going to help you in your career. Even if you go to the airport and just take one lesson, couple lessons, and you get some of these books, you're going to start meeting people, and you're going to start networking in your town, and get a gauge on what's going on and who's flying, and that can help you tremendously throughout your career. I mean, Sean and I met when I was renting an airplane, when we both had hardly any time, and then we later reconvened at a jet operation. But these things, the aviation is a small world, and just if you get involved, that's my biggest thing. Just get involved, and don't wait. You only regret in life the shots you don't take. I mean, just do what you can to get involved. If you could find a way to finance your training, and it sounds like based on your situation, it would be very difficult, but if there's a way to do it, I think your payback could be tremendous, because remember, all these airlines pay based on seniority. So if you're going to be an airline and the mandatory age for retirement is 65, and those are all your top earning years, if you pause for 2 years and then you start your training, you still got to retire at 65. So you just missed 2 years at your top earning. And I mean, adjusted for inflation, that could be $500,000 or more dollars,
Right. Back in your
theoretically.
career. Yeah. When you're making close to $400,000 a year. Right.
Right.
He didn't seem too concerned. Well, he didn't say anything about financing the training or the money for the training part. He was more concerned about, the timeline of, being the only person bringing in income to the house. And, he's going to run off and be at the airport all day and give up his job. Yeah. He's got to wait for his wife to get there. But definitely, like I said, my advice, I think our advice would be, get the private, go ahead and do that. You're going to need it anyway before you start ATP's program. And
it's so fun. It is so fun too. Your private license. You're really going to enjoy that.
Yeah. In the beginning, you could take your time with it a little bit, but once you get a couple hours in, I wouldn't be doing less than 3 nights a week, after work, go over to the airport and knock it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question though. Yeah. And I wish him the best of luck, and keep us in touch on how things are going, because
yes.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll do well.
Yeah. Do not worry about the 2 years from now and then another 2 years. The shortage is going to be, no, we're going to be in this thing for a while, and it's going to be a mess. It's going to be, in my opinion, my prediction is it's going to be a bigger mess than anybody actually realizes it is. Yeah.
There may have never been a better time to get involved, because like you said, it takes time to get everything completed in your training, and then by that time everything should be roaring back.
Yeah. I got a quote, Mike. You just were having a quote. I like the idea. We left it with a quote. We ended the podcast with a quote a while back or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I came across this one. It kind of fits into his a little bit because he's going to have this window where he's probably going to have his private, and then he's going to be waiting around for his wife to graduate and find a job. And he's going to be itching to go and whatever. And I don't know. I think this one applies a little bit. And here it is. If you focus on results, you will rarely see change. But if you focus on change, you'll get results. And
man, that's great.
Yeah, I think it applies a little bit here.
Yeah. It does. But Garrett, that's great.
Garrett, thank you for the question. And remember, if you have a question for us you'd like us to answer on the air, email us at podcast@propilotplaybook.com. And we will see you next week.
Yeah, thank you for watching.